Hi everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I'd like to start with some quick housekeeping. This webinar will be recorded, and let's just dive straight in. So our fantastic panel discussion will take place for about half an hour, and then we'll throw to some audience questions for about 10 to 15 minutes. Please use the question box. You'll see that at the side of the screen. You can place your questions in there whenever they occur to you during the webinar, and we'll get to them at the end. If you do have a question for a particular panelist, of course, feel free to specify. We've got a lot to get through for today. So starting now with our topic, it is micro-fulfilment is changing retail, and we'll be looking at how customer expectations are evolving and the opportunities for retailers. We are joined today by Ben Watson and Aruni Pereira, both new business managers for Vicinity Centres. With an extensive history in retail asset ownership and management across Australia, Vicinity Centres exist to enrich community experiences and reimagine destinations of the future, creating places where people love to connect. With 60 shopping centres located nationwide, 2/3 of the Australian population live within a 30-minute drive of a Vicinity Centre. Ben and Aruni will work within Vicinity's new business team, involved in researching, developing, testing and launching new business initiatives within the organisation, with the objective of providing greater value to both Vicinity's existing retail partners and new retailers. Welcome, Ben and Aruni. Also here today, we have Lee Harden, who is CEO and co-founder of Browse, an omni-channel retail platform connecting services such as reserve in store, click and collect, ship from store and video commerce. Browse works with retailers such as Nike, Samsung, Q Clothing, Forever New and Michael Hill, bridging the gap between digital and physical shopping with one simple integration. Welcome, Lee. Also on our panel today is Grant Arnott, CEO of Global Marketplace, which owns Click Frenzy, Power Retail and Grab One. For those I haven't met before, my name is Natasha Scholl and I'm the Insights Editor at Power Retail. Let's dive straight in. So, Grant, I'd like to start with you. Could you please share with us some of the market trends you're seeing with respect to online fulfilment?
Yeah, look, maybe I'll start with the state of online currently as we're seeing it in November. So this is from the latest Power Retail Trajectory Report. So we publish these every fortnight based on a combination of retailer analytics data and also consumer survey data. And so November's forecast to be $4.64 billion spent online in Australia. That's down on $5 billion we saw last year. So it's really showing that the trend back towards in-store is coming at the expense of online, as we would have predicted, but perhaps not as much as we thought it might. So certainly consumers are turning back to in-stores for that instant gratification when it comes to fulfillment. But we're still seeing, yeah, pretty healthy trajectory for online, given that stores have reopened. The other, I suppose, when it comes to online fulfillment directly, so one of the big things, this particular talking point was only for this session. So in the trajectory report, we're seeing the rise of click and collect. So up to 72% now of consumers or online shoppers over the last 12 months have purchased a click and collect purchase. And their reasons are growing, so they're seeing it as more convenient. The main reasons that shoppers aren't using click and collect was the convenience of delivery, but most of them are seeing it as faster than delivery, 51%, cheaper than delivery at 48% who thought that, and the convenience of click and collect, so being able to collect it within a few hours of placing the order, or the next day at a time of your choosing, knowing that it's going to be there waiting for you, was 46%. But the other interesting part was the main reason shoppers don't use click and collect was the convenience of delivery. So delivery is still a very important part of the online shopping experience. When free delivery is offered, so when free shipping and there's no downside or no extra cost associated with the purchase, then having it delivered to you, then clearly waiting at home for the parcel to arrive as a gift is perhaps more preferable than going out and getting it from the store. And also, if they don't live near a location where they can collect from, 22% said that was one of the reasons to deter them from using click and collect. The other major issue that we see in fulfillment, with talking to retailers every day, is huge rising cost of online fulfilment, and the expectation that the customer being up here and the logistics networks and their ability to deliver it at a profit point being down here. So there's a real gap and a challenge for retailers there, not only grappling with the fulfilment costs themselves, but the rising costs of supply chain, staffing issues, etc., really putting pressure on margins at the same time that you have the consumer expectation rising for smoother delivery, cheap returns or free returns, really putting pressure on retailers. So anything that can unlock some efficiencies and some cost reduction in logistics is certainly that's really the pot of gold that we see retailers are really looking for. It's not the sexiest part of retail when you're talking about the fulfillment piece and the logistics, but it's definitely where the money is.
Thanks for that. Maybe Aruni will jump to you now. Can you talk us through what you've been seeing in your role at Vicinity Centres?
Thank you, Grant and Natasha. Yes, so Ben and I spent a fair bit of time understanding where we could add value as shopping centres. And I totally agree with Grant. I mean, today's e-commerce customer has much higher expectations than before, set out by Amazons and Ubers of the world. So when they order something, they expect the product to come to them much faster than before. They want to pay much lower shipping costs or free shipping if possible, and still to have the least amount of impact on the environment as well. So we see that some of the larger advanced retailers trying to meet those expectations by getting the product close to the customer. So if they have a store network, they have started fulfilling their orders from stores to customers. A great example of that globally is Walmart. So when a customer goes on the Walmart website and orders a product, the Walmart store that's closest to the customer will pick and pack that order. They also have a delivery service. So that order and 200 other orders that were placed by customers around that Walmart store would be delivered straight from the store to the customers. So in that model, the pick and pack happened faster without too much double handling. The delivery happened faster because the number of kilometers traveled is very low compared to from a warehouse in another state or another country even. And finally, the cost of delivery is much cheaper because not only have you found the a direct delivery method, where you're consolidating volumes as well to make it more efficient. Now, in Australia, we do see some retailers fulfilling from store. Kmart, JB Hi-Fi, Accent Group, they all use their store network for click and collect and returns, like Grant mentioned, and also delivery from store. But the challenge here is that the larger logistics networks in logistics companies in Australia don't really have a good model to support store-to-door sort of deliveries. So what I mean by that is, say I'm a customer, I live right next to a shopping center, and I order a pair of shoes online. So that pair of shoes could have been picked and packed in the shopping center right next door, but when the carrier comes to pick the product to be delivered to me, it still goes to a distribution center that's 25 kilometers away, the product stays there for a couple of days, then comes to a sortation center that's closer to me, stays there a couple of days, and then comes to me, even though the shopping center and I live right next to each other, right? So there's unnecessary handling, unnecessary kilometers traveled. So it's not cheaper, it's not faster, it's not greener either, even though the retailers are really trying to get the product closer to the customers. Now, there are service providers that does pick up from store and deliver straight to the customer. Those are your point-to-point delivery providers like Uber, DoorDash, Sherpa. They do limit the number of kilometers, and it's definitely a faster delivery, but it's one product or couple of products at a time. So it's not efficient. It's very cost prohibitive to do beyond like 5 kilometers. And I do feel this is where shopping centers could really add value. Because we do have 50, 100, 200 retailers under one roof. So as a shopping center, we could provide the space, the tech, and the labor to consolidate all these delivery volumes from multiple retailers, and have support a last mile delivery that's efficient, like the Walmart model. We also can provide click and collect and return solutions. So if we have, in our research, we see that a lot of our customers visit our centers at least once a week, whether it's shopping or groceries or fashion. So if we get the customers to get used to ordering online, picking it up from the center while they get their shoes, their groceries, and we offer 10 people pick up their parcels a day. That's 10 separate home deliveries avoided. That helps the logistics providers with the capacity, the cost reduces, the carbon emissions reduce. So I do feel the fact that shopping centers have all these customers coming in and have multiple retailers in one location means that we could play a bigger role in this whole equation. And that would reduce the delivery cost, the delivery speed, and bring a better, greener sort of solution. And that's what Ben and I have been working for on the last couple of years.
Thank you. Now that you've mentioned Ben, would you, Ben, be able to shed some light on the concept of micro-fulfillment? We've talked a bit about logistics and fulfillment generally, but how has micro-fulfillment specifically have potential to solve some of the headaches that we've spoken about briefly already today?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Natasha. So yeah, some of the items that Aruni just talked about there involves moving the box per se and helping make the movement of parcels and packages more efficient for both click and collect and others. Whereas the micro fulfillment project that we're working on specifically involves holding inventory inside a fulfillment center, like a warehouse, where we then pick and pack that product on behalf of a variety of different brands. And micro fulfillment, in the term specifically, is about being a fulfillment center, but on a small scale, closer to the end consumer. And that's what we think we have the capability of doing fairly well, being that our assets are usually located right in the heart of populated areas. So micro fulfillment in our version is essentially a warehouse where we pick and pack orders, but because we are located in a shopping center, customers can walk right up. Customers who are in the center shopping at Coles and Woolies and other places can literally walk in to collect products that they've ordered online that we've picked and packed here. They can return products here. They can even try products on. Under the underpinning of some great tech that our friends at Browse have, there are opportunities for online brands to use fitting room services right here in the fulfillment center, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. So micro fulfillment in its pure essence is fulfillment closer to the end consumer. We started to see people overseas doing different versions of this across different regions. Through the US, there's a great company called Forlogic who have been doing things like this down in the basement of a shopping center for a while. I've seen a group out of Belgium that are doing something in the mall, but it's more for a particular marketplace. From what I've seen, we're the first to do something that is very much customer facing on behalf of a variety of brands, both the brands that are in the center and brands that aren't yet in the center. And that's where it starts to get really interesting. That's where personally I feel it's really different. So some of the use cases include brands that are in the center who might not fulfill from store very well. So there's a particular store here that I know very well. I get on that website, I order a pair of chinos, and I click the click and collect button for the Glen, which is where I am, in Glen Waverley here in Melbourne. What actually happens when I buy those chinos is they get shipped in from Sydney, and then they ping me a notification to say that my order has arrived ready for collection. And there's a variety of reasons why different brands don't fulfill from store. So what we can do for that brand is hold, say, their top 100, top 200, top 500 SKUs. The customer orders those chinos online. We pick and pack those chinos into a bag branded by that retailer. We walk it down to their store and let them know that the customer can now be notified for that order. So there's a use case for both brands that are in the centre as well as brands that are not yet in the centre. So I'll call out some of the retailers that we've partnered with already that we're finding really interesting value from. For example, Jam the Label, they're an apparel brand who are using our fulfilment centre as somewhat a gateway into a shopping centre. They may well have a shop one day. In fact, they're putting a pop-up right outside the fulfilment centre so that they can use our change rooms. So for them, it's more of a traditional play. But then we have other brands like Aroma Baby. They only have 12 products, 12, 13, 14 products. So it's unlikely that they will ever take a retail shop front. So they're using us purely as a click and collect location, and we deliver outbound goods for them. The third brand that I'll mention, and again, it's a really interesting one, is Wild Secrets. They sell adult sex toys, and they would never be able to place a retail store within any of our centres. It'd be fairly difficult to do. So by having their products here, we're picking and packing their products discreetly from the fulfilment centre out the back, right up until 9 o'clock on a Friday night. Their warehouse is not open at 9 o'clock on a Friday night, but that happens to be when they sell a lot of their product. So the different types of brands that we're starting to interact with are finding different values from what we're offering here. Some people use it for the same day service. Some people use it for the click and collect option. Some people use it because we have digital screens in the front and change rooms. So there's a variety of different reasons why different brands are joining, and that's what we're most excited about. It's not a pure e-com play. It's a variety of both physical and online play. So I'll pause there, other than to say those that are probably not right to get involved with this just yet are barbecues and bicycles, so to speak. Our first fulfilment centre is quite small, whereas we're looking to scale this in a number of locations around Australia, which will be much bigger, but it's unlikely that we'll be taking couches anytime soon. That's where I'll pause there, Natasha. That's essentially micro fulfilment and what it is that we're doing at Vicinity at the moment in that space.
Thank you so much, Ben. And for anyone who did join just a few minutes late, I'll just remind you that you are able to ask questions of our attendees. We will be asking those questions just in the last 10 to 15 minutes. So feel free to pop them in that question box at any moment they come to you. I can see we've already got a few great questions ready to go. So just feel free to add them whenever they come to you. Lee, I'll jump to you now. So could you tell us how some of the work your team is doing with Browse connects with the concepts we've spoken about just recently?
Yeah, for sure. First off, I just want to say, obviously, thank you for having me here and how exciting it is to join the conversation about micro fulfillment centres in Australia. So, you know, we're talking about new technology that's coming in and a new way to help fulfill for customers, you know, which really is an Australian first. So, number one, it's exciting to be here and to join that conversation. As Browse, as a technology, and, you know, just answer your question, Natasha, so a few ways that the technology works for Browse. We're an inventory aware platform. So we're able to simply connect into store-based inventory, and in this instance, the warehouse management inventory that's used by the micro fulfillment centres. So, you know, providing that inventory awareness, and then also have that connect back into our solution. We've got an order management system or a booking management system where all the experiences can flow through into and easily be fulfilled, managing all the comms that go back to customers. So, all of our solutions are very much low code or no code in some instance. So I guess if you can look at it, taking out the pain point for retailers where, you know, say they wanted to connect into the micro fulfillment center, they can connect via Browse, use our low code option, connect these experiences up to their website, or simply enable more options such as click and collect. You know, Ben touched on one of our premier solutions, which is reserve in store. And the ability to reserve a product so they can come and try it on, and all the way through to, you know, on-demand delivery as well.
Thank you so much for that. I've got a question I might throw to the group. Obviously, micro-fulfillment is fairly new in terms of its evolution of fulfillment. What's the risk for retailers who sort of think, I'll just see how it goes, I'll let it slide? Why should retailers sort of jump in early and get things going?
That's a good question. I might start. I suppose we've seen a centralized fulfillment model be deployed amongst a lot of the larger brands for a long time now. And that has real benefit when it comes to the control around where you fulfill from. But as consumer expectations around reliability and speed and sustainability increase, the need for getting your product closer to the end consumer increases as well. And I think the sustainability part is probably if not the most important of those parts. I think consumers are counting their carbons more and more. They're counting them as much as they're counting their own calories these days, and that is only going to continue to be a thing. So I think the sustainability component is probably where people are at risk of falling behind somewhat. And we think micro-fulfillment and some of the logistic work that we're doing helps to shorten the gap in that sense.
Yeah, I think it's an amazingly exciting progression. And for disclosure, Vicinity is an investor in our business. But one of the real light bulb moments when we met with Vicinity over a year ago now was looking at what they're doing in this space. And as I said earlier, retailers are absolutely crying out for some type of game changer, some type of circuit breaker to improve logistics efficiencies. And to me, this is that. You look at shopping centre networks across Australia, destinations for shoppers to go to already, to turn them also into fulfilment centres, and to allow brands like those that Ben spoke about earlier, online only brands that don't have a store network, to be able to leverage this type of click and collect opportunity and build their brand, and not only dip a toe in the water, but build a bigger customer base. And instead of a warehouse out in an industrial area, but you're walking through premium shopping centres like the Glen, where you can actually see your brand on display at the fulfilment centre within a centre, not out the back in a warehouse, I think is an amazing opportunity. And just what Ben said then, in terms of the consumer expectations around sustainability, the pressures increasing on retailers to show that they're practicing ESG, and this also ticks that box. But I think it really is an exciting potential circuit breaker for some of the logistics cost challenges and efficiency challenges that Australian retailers, large and small, face.
Yeah, I might just jump in as well. At Browse, we know it's about 55% of customers that browse online want to know product availability in store. And so you're talking about over half of your customers are looking for, locations that might stock your product, and that could be for a range of different reasons. One of those being getting those items delivered, quickly, or being able to try those items on. So I think, when we look at micro-fulfillment as an option for retailers, furthering on Grant's point that he mentioned earlier, I think he said there was a stat in there that was something like 22% of customers didn't use click and collect because there weren't enough locations. So, when we look at what it's doing for customers, it's really that convenience economy. I don't know if there's any pure play retailers that are joining us right now. They might be thinking to themselves, well, 55% of our customers aren't looking for locations. As soon as they open up their first location, you can say 55% would be. And that's because customers want that convenience of knowing that there's a location that they can go and either pick up their item, get it delivered, or go and try it on. So, really we're seeing micro fulfillment in its early stages through the micro fulfillment centres. But that's really the biggest reason to jump on board and support something like this, is so that we can see it grow, so we can see more of these options open up, and then we can drive that convenience economy for consumers.
And on that theme of growth, are there any plans to scale the operations? We know that obviously it's Melbourne based for now.
Yeah, 100%. I think we are currently looking at a last mile delivery option. Ben has scoped out 25 plus locations in all of Australia, because we do have shopping centres in every state apart from Northern Territory and ACT. And it's really exciting for us, because for the first time, we're truly trying to help every type of retailer to get closer to the customer. We're not targeting certain types. It feels like it's a win-win situation, whether it's an online retailer or whether you have stores or whether you have both. And it's a great proposition for the customer as well, right? To have options to pick it up or to get it delivered the same day for much cheaper. We're trialing quite a few things, and we're getting a lot of interest from logistics players and retailers at the same time. And we're working with with tech companies like Hub'd to enable click and collect locations. It's an end-to-end sort of ecosystem that we're working on that creates you know, savings, efficiencies, green sort of you know, everything using our shopping center network Australia-wide.
Thank you so much. We'll start to head over to some audience Q&A now. Thank you so much, everyone, all the panelists. That was really interesting. I think the elements especially that were interesting were the sustainability factors, which some people may not have thought of before when it comes to fulfillment and micro-fulfillment especially. In fact, there might be a lot of misconceptions about why it is actually a more sustainable options in many regards. And also the convenience factor. Again, maybe misconceptions about what convenience means to consumers, and often picking up directly from a centre is the more convenient option over delivery in many cases, as we've seen. So I'll jump to the audience questions now, and feel free to add your questions in as we go. The first question now is for Aruni. So this is from Camille. So hi Aruni, do you have a dedicated space in the mall for click and collect, including opening tables and changing room if necessary?
That's a great question. So right now we have enabled 12 plus of our centers for any type of click and collect and returns. You could order your stuff from a Zara, eBay, but we've enabled them at the concierge desk. However, the micro fulfillment center at the Glen has a shop front, which has changing rooms and many capabilities there. Our plan is to expand that service in the other centers as well to a dedicated space. So we are trialing with our concierge or guest experience spaces, but the future plan is to have a front of house with, you know, change rooms, lockers, that sort of very convenient space for customers to pick multiple parcels, try things on, return. What's really cool for the retailers is instead of sending back one return at a time, we can consolidate returns and send it in one go. We would have the space to do it, unlike a regular click and collect location that's a newsstand or anything. So for us, it's kind of a win-win situation because the retailer gets a much cheaper return, a consolidated return, and then the customer doesn't have to do multiple trips to return something, try something. They can get everything in one convenient sort of trip to your shopping center.
Thank you so much for that. This one may be for you, Ben. It's straight to the point. How much does it cost to participate in a micro-fulfillment program?
Yeah, that is straight to the point. Thank you. Well, the way that we work from a commercial point of view with the micro-fulfillment centre is similar to a 3PL in the way that our fee structure works. It's a fee for activity. And so there is a small fee for when we inbound the product. There's a small fee for storing the product, like on the shelves behind you. We charge by cubic metre. So we have small shelf locations that are one price and large shelf locations which are a different price. And then there's fees for the outbound of picking and packing that order. So it's a fee for activity type service. Where we're different to a 3PL in that sense though is often a 3PL would require you to place all or most of your product in that warehouse, whereas we are essentially setting up a distributed network of these centres where we can hold one product, 100 products, 1,000 products. Eventually we'll say we can't hold anymore, and that'd be a good problem to have. So it's a fee for activity type service at the moment.
Okay, great, thank you. And this is a question from Sam. So what is the typical size of the micro-fulfillment centre, given it's situated within the shopping centre? And how do you ensure that micro-fulfillment centre can accommodate the range offered by a large retailer? You might have touched on that just briefly just then.
Yeah, that is also, that's really important, that question. And so we've thought long and hard about that. Our hypothesis is that these sites should be anywhere between 1,000 and 5,000 square metres big. And so 5,000 square metres big is as big as one floor of a department store or a supermarket or a discount department store. 1,000 square metres is about as big as a medium-sized JB Hi-Fi. So the sizes that we think these centres should be are pretty big. And with that scale, you can then start to hold a fairly decent amount of SKU range. But like I said before, we don't aim to hold the entire inventory of a particular retailer like a giant warehouse in Truganina might do. What we look to do is hold potentially the entire range, but very small amounts of that entire range, and have that range set up in a variety of locations around Australia, closer to the end consumer. So we have some good technology in the background to help with retailers in planning that inventory management, so that it's not a giant increase in stock holding, it's more of a smart increase in stock holding, closer to the end consumer, ready for sale.
Thanks for that.
If I could add to that, I think that's really important, the last point. Retailers can only do this distributed model if they have really good understanding of where and which stock should be. And we have the right partners to help the retailers understand that and trial things. And so that, because when we talk to retailers, that is one of the key questions, like, are we going to spend a lot on a distributed inventory network? But it's really data led, and we do have the partners to support that side of things.
Thanks for that. This is a question from Rob from Love Honey. Hi, Rob. If this concept works for Vicinity, would you look to expand outside of your shopping centres?
Hey, Rob. I love your brand, by the way. That's a good question. Again, it's not something that we've had active discussions on, other than to say that we are open to discussion as to how this program scales up. Our main aim here is to provide greater value to both our retailers, existing and new retailers wishing to come and join our family, so to speak. And so if there were opportunities presented to us that held us to that mission, then it would be worthy of exploration. That's about as much as I could probably answer, I suppose, but nothing's off the table.
Thanks for that. This is a question from Alex. You may have touched on the beginning part just recently, but there's an end to it as well, which you might want to expand on. So what are the leasing arrangements with shopping centre owners for these spaces, and is there a minimum space requirement?
Right, so our little fulfilment centre team here, we have leased this site from the shopping centre. So we've leased a shop just like the other retailers that are here. And then those brands that join the fulfilment centre essentially join on what we're calling a service agreement, which essentially governs how we interact with each other, that activity fee point of view that I called out before. So when brands join our fulfilment centre, they're not signing a lease, nor are they building a shop. Some of the brands that have joined us may very well move toward doing that, and they're using us as a gateway to become a part of our more traditional shopping centre group. But some of the online brands that here are unlikely to ever build a store, and they're using us for different reasons. So in that instance, a lease is not appropriate. We have the lease with the shopping centre, and then in turn, our agreement with the brands is a little more flexible.
Thanks for that. We've also got another question from Sam. So he says, you may have covered this. Is there any automation within these fulfilment facilities? And if so, what are they?
So the stands that you can see behind me, these are AMR-based stands, autonomous mobile robot stands, AMR pods they're called. And so we could, in theory, roll in AMR robots tomorrow that roll around on the ground and pick these stands up. So we are built to load in the automation when we need to. Because we have just launched, we only have a small handful of clients on board at the moment. Our volumes are slowly growing. We don't need the robots today. And when we reach a point where we may need robots, we may move to AMRs, which work with these pods, or we may move to a different type of automation at that stage. We'll make the call when we reach that point based on who our customers are and their product needs and that sort of thing. But for now, there is minimal automation from a robot point of view, although the technology that we use to pick and pack our orders is all based on a fantastic platform that we're using from a company in Sydney called Deoida. They have a product called Do Warehouse, which is a fantastic both WMS platform as well as other tech stacks that sit under that. So we have a fair amount of technology involved here, but the robots aren't active at this site yet as they're not quite needed today.
If I could add to that, I think micro-fulfillment and making sure that in our 1,000 to 5,000 spaces, we utilize them at the maximum sort of level. We will need robotics in the future, so that has always been top of our mind, that we don't start this project and then go, our spaces are too small. So we've engaged consultants that are in that space, our technology, our hardware, like Ben suggested, they're all geared towards robotics and maximum use of space, given that we are not in Truganina, we are in a shopping center. So that's definitely top of mind.
Thank you for that. This is a question that might be good for you, Grant. It's about consumer behaviour. So is there a shift that needs to happen so consumers are aware of what micro-fulfilment is? So I guess expanding on that, I guess consumers are used to delivery, they're used to click and collect. Do they need to make a leap, or is this just part of how they're used to sort of collecting orders these days?
Yeah, really good question. Something I've been pondering as to, you know, what is the size of the prize in this space. And so you do have entrenched behavior now with online shopping, which is, you know, you order online and you sit back and wait for the doorbell to ring. But now that doorbell might not ring for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, might not ring at all. And there's other, you know, the sustainability piece that we talked about, there's other considerations there. So there does need to be a mind shift, no doubt, but it's a positive mind shift. I think it's easily achievable when consumers and the click and collect figures that we just talked about earlier, for those who were on the call earlier, are really encouraging signs showing that consumers are happy to shop online for the endless aisle piece, all the range that you can get, and the convenience of shopping from your desktop. But on the collection piece, they're really interested in being able to get it in either 1 to 3 hours or next day. It's like, okay, great. They've got my item, and I'm going shopping anyway this weekend at Chadstone or the Glen or Chatswood or wherever I'm shopping, and now I can do my shopping and breeze past the collection center and pick that up on the way out. I think that's going to be a really compelling consumer experience, and one that I think will start with, you know, modest penetration, but one of those things that will sweep through consumers, which is why I'm really excited about you know, the potential of this space, not only for the business side for retailers, but you know, what it can mean for consumers, and again, anything that, you know, leads to an enhancement in the online shopping experience is going to be really welcomed by shoppers, and I think this will deliver that.
Yeah.
The other
Sorry, Grant.
Sorry, the only other thing I was going to say quickly is also the fact that you can, with this type of construct, you can negate that try before you buy challenge that you have with online so often, where it's like, especially footwear or something like that, you can actually go and try the shoes on, and if they're not right, potentially have a replacement sitting beside them, but without the high cost and sustainability impact of returning those shoes. Sorry,
yeah.
go for it.
Yeah, awesome. And I might just follow up on that as well, and say that, you know, what we've seen, especially at Browse, is that consumer need really drives the adoption for change and to adopt these new methods. So, you know, when we first brought it Reserve in Store out into the market, you know, we put it on our first website, and, you know, without any consumer education or anything like that, we saw, you know, hundreds of consumers literally make reservations in the first 24 hours of it being live. And so, you know, really, you know, I think when we look at things like Australia Post and, you know, the stoppages and the cutoffs on delivery and things like that, it's really things like these that drive that adoption to change. You know, an interesting stat that we saw recently was click and collect searches have increased in Google by 350%. This month already. So, you know, if I'm a consumer and I'm searching for click and collect and I find this method that can be delivered through a micro fulfillment center, I'm going to learn really, really quickly that I can get my item more conveniently. So, you know, I think it's that consumer need that adopts that change, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I might add one more thing too. Thank you, Lee. Whilst there is a consumer shift required, I think a lot of the work that happens in centres like this and other ideas that are floating around, the consumer 9 times out of 10 will never see. You know, as an example, when I called out that brand that's here in the centre, where we might pick and pack their product into their bag and walk it down to that store, that consumer will still walk into that brand's retail shop and have never known that micro fulfillment or logistics or anything was ever involved, at any different level than before. And for a lot of the online brands that are here that we're picking and packing for, again, we'll deliver that via the outbound, out the back door. And again, the consumer will never know that it was from a shopping centre or from a micro fulfilment centre. So often the consumers won't realise until they just notice that things are faster, things are more reliable, things are now there's more optionality in how I can get it, where I can get it, when I can get it. And then that will start to permeate the sustainability angle. I think people will then start to realise that, okay, well, this clearly didn't have to travel as far because I'm collecting it while I'm here, or I'm collecting multiple at a time, that sort of thing. So I think often the consumer won't see it. It's the shift amongst industry and retailer that's really required, in my view.
Yeah, it's an excellent point.
I just wanted to touch on something that we didn't spend too much time on. I think, especially for pure online retailers, getting in front of customers and getting their brand present is a huge challenge, right? Because it's one of 1,000 other websites or marketplaces. I think having a fulfillment facility in a shopping center means they could actually work with the shopping center to advertise, have a pop-up right next to it to, engage with them. They are all not long-term large fixed costs. It's variable costs and a bit of media. You can't do these sort of things from a warehouse far away. Having advertisements in the digital screens to having a pop-up when their product launches and the fulfillment. Those are things they could really use to engage with their customers and get some brand presence. Our stats are 350 to 400 million customers per year in our shopping centers. Those are eyeballs that they can target to really get their brand presence. That's something, because we're going down into logistics, we don't talk about the huge value that they can untap by having a presence inside the shopping center and combining their fulfillment or pickup option with some media, some advertisements, pop-up. So I think there's quite a lot of options to bring value out of this sort of system or service.
I'm going to jump to one last question. We do have plenty that I haven't been able to get through today. I'm just conscious of time, so apologies if I haven't managed to get to your question. The last one I'll do for today is, what has the reception from the market been like for this new format for shopping centres?
So we've been in the market now for the last year or so, mostly meeting with folks at various events and conferences, as well as our existing family of retailers across our centres. And the feedback has been unbelievably positive, but often the larger the retailer or the larger the physical footprint they have, and the more they are fulfilling from store, the less need there is for this service for those brands. So the brands that we are finding the sweet spot with are those that either have a limited physical footprint or a limited online presence that they're looking to grow by spreading inventory out to enable faster delivery, more convenient delivery. We've met with folks like JB Hi-Fi and EB Games and others that fulfill from store really well already, and both their feedback has been extremely encouraging. Brands like that do what we are trying to do really well. And so the smaller the brand, the less physical network they have, the more low-hanging fruit there is, I think. So the feedback has been fantastic across parts of the market.
I might just follow up on that as well, because we've got a range of customers that use us for our video commerce solution that are in pure play retailers. And I can say hand on heart, every single one of them that works with us is extremely excited about this space right now, what's happening. They're considering either getting involved now, or some are hoping that more locations open up. If I could suggest anything, and this is what I suggest to all of those retailers when we're talking to them, it is, we're talking about new technology. This is the first one to come out, but it's really about watching this space grow, and to help it grow, you need to be involved. And so, I'm extremely excited about Vicinity's plan for, rolling out more centres across the country. And so, really when they're looking at these options, really look at embracing this first fulfilment centre and get excited about the future for what's to come.
It is very exciting, and
Thanks,
it is a
Lee.
great to finish up. So unfortunately we are out of time today, and I'm sorry I could see all those questions there. If you would like to ask a question directly, you can see the details there on the screen for Ben and Aruni. Please send all your micro fulfillment questions their way. Thank you to all our fantastic panelists who joined us today, Grant, Lee, Ben, Aruni. It is a really exciting time for e-commerce generally, heading to Christmas, and obviously with the evolution of fulfillment as well. So thank you all for giving your time for that today, and thank you to all our audience attendees as well for joining us. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks, Natasha.
Thank you.